Hi everybody, our next topic is negative exponents. So, really quick, if this thing would focus, if I had a base of 5 and it was raised to the negative 2 power, that means I rewrite that as 1 over 5 to the positive second power. If I had 1 divided by 4 to the negative third, I write that as 4 to the third power. So if you can just look at these two examples, kind of a trick that we talk about is if the base is to a negative exponent, to make it positive, you bring it down into the denominator and that changes it into a positive exponent. If it is in the denominator with a negative exponent, you bring it up to the numerator and that makes it a positive exponent. With variables, if we had a to the negative n, I rewrite that as 1 over a to the n. 1 over a to the negative n, I bring that up to the numerator, it becomes a to the positive n power. We do not leave negative exponents in answers. To simplify an expression completely, you have to use positive exponents in your answer. So let's go through. I have 10 examples here to help you with your homework tonight. So number 1, if you had something like this, 2 to the negative fourth, not negative fourth, sorry. I'm focusing on my phone, not focusing. 2 to the negative 4, sorry. So my base is 2. And just because there's a negative exponent, that does not mean you have a negative answer. That's a big mistake we always see. Because of this negative 4, that tells me I have to write it as 1 over 2 to the 4th power. And that's your answer. We would like you to leave it like that so that we know that you know what you did. Just remember, 2 to the 4th is not 2 times 4. It is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, which is really 16. Just FYI. Let's look at another one, number 2. 10 to the negative second. So because of that negative exponent, I have to write it as 1 over, my base is 10, and now it becomes a positive 2. Also remember, that's not 10 times 2, it's 10 times 10, which is 100. Number 3, 5 to the negative 1. Because of this negative exponent, I have to write it as 1 over 5 to the first, which is just 1/5. Number 4. So now this one here, this is saying x times y to the negative 2. So I'd like to point out here that it is just y, that is to the negative second power. X is really to the first power. So this gets a little tricky. So because x is to the first power, it's going to stay on top. It's not negative. Because y is to the negative 2, I have to write it on the bottom as y squared. And I'm done, because I have no negative exponents in my answer. Number 5, remember this is m times n to the negative 3. So n is the base that is to the negative third power. M is to the first. So because m is to a positive exponent, it stays on top. N is to a negative exponent, so it goes on the bottom, and I write it as a positive exponent of 3. Number 6, upping the ante here. Notice now we're bringing in properties that we did the past 2 days. So first let's look at the x's. And we're not going to use our negative properties yet. We're going to talk about what do we do when we have a base over a base. So I have a base divided by the same base. You subtract the exponents. 4 minus 2. That's what you're doing in your head. So 4 minus 2 is 2. Because 2 is positive, I write x squared in the numerator. This here is y to the first over y to the fifth. So that's 1 minus 5, which is negative 4. So there's a couple ways to think about this. Because I got a negative number here of negative 4, that means y is going to be on the bottom to the 4th power. A trick that we sometimes share is that whichever side, meaning the numerator or the denominator, whichever number is bigger, that's where your answer goes. That's always a trick. So like here, 4 and 2, 4 is bigger, so my x squared goes on the top. 1 and 5, 5 is bigger. When I do 1 minus 5, I get a negative 4. That means because 5 is bigger, the y to the 4th goes in the denominator. Number 7. So we have a to the 5th over a cubed. So I have to do 5 minus 3, which is 2. Because the 5 is bigger than 3, my a squared will go on the top. This is b to the 1st over b to the 4th. 1 minus 4 is negative 3. 4 is bigger than 1, so it's going to be b to the 3rd. A squared over b to the 3rd. Number 8. I want you to look at the numbers first. Negative 6 divided by 18. That's negative 1/3. Now let's look at the r's. You have a r cubed over r to the negative 7. There's a couple ways to look at this, but I'm just going to do it the division way. This is 3 minus a negative 7. That gives you 10, because it's 3 plus 7. Which number's bigger, 3 or negative 7? 3. So my answer is going to go on the top as r to the 10th. Let's look at your s's. S to the 5th over s to the 5th, those cancel out. They're the same exact value. You could also know this because 5 minus 5 is 0, and anything to the 0 power is 1. Your last one, t to the negative 2, there's no other t, but because it's a negative exponent, I have to bring it up to the top and write it as t squared. So I could just write this a little better. It'd be negative r to the 10th t squared all over 3. And I am not sure what is going on with my phone. I have it charging, but my battery life is just decreasing here as I make this video. That's not good news. Okay, so number 9. Let's see how long I can make it. I have 5 over negative 25. So we need to simplify that. 5 divided by negative 25. That's negative 1/5. Looking at our a's, we are doing 4 minus a negative 2. That turns into a plus. I get 6. 4 is bigger than negative 2, so my answer is going on the top as a to the 6th. B's, b to the 6th over b to the 6th, that's the same thing. Those cross out to 1. And then just like your last one, c to the negative 3rd, I need to bring that up to the top and write it as c cubed. I'm going to write this a little nicer. It's negative a to the 6th. Wow, if I could, all right. Negative a to the 6th, c cubed all over 5. That's your answer. Last one. We group the 8 and the 10. 8 divided by 10. I'm going to divide each of those by 2. So that's 4/5. Let's look at your x's. You have 3 minus a negative 3. That turns into a plus. I get 6. 3 is bigger than negative 3, so my answer goes in the top as x to the 6th. Y to the 5th over y to the 5th, same exact thing. Those cross out to 1. And then this time z is just z to the 1st. So that's going to stay where it is because the 1 is positive. And that's your answer. I mean, I can write it a little nicer. 4x to the 6th over 5z. You know that you are done with these when you have simplified your just regular numbers, your coefficients, we'll say. You only have one of each variable left, one of each variable in your answer. You have no negative coefficients, not coefficients, I'm sorry, exponents. Okay, things to keep in mind. Again, just because you have a negative exponent, that does not make the actual number or variable negative. That tells you that you need to move the variable to the other side. And when I say side, I mean numerator or denominator.